Is gaming antisocial? It sounds like a simple question, and one that parents, teachers, and other quote-unquote adults have bashed us over the head with for decades. They have an image of someone locked away in their room, not talking to anybody, much like the World of Warcraft episode of South Park. But there's also a flip side to this. One in which many gamers have screamed profanities at strangers on the internet in a Call of Duty lobby. This is equally as antisocial. Then there's the fact that gaming brings together communities of like-minded people who support each other, who otherwise would have never met. So, is gaming antisocial? It's complicated. Let's rewind a few decades and start where it all began, in the arcades. The history of video games begins with arcade cabinets in the 1970s, before some guy goes in the comments and talks about some small prototype thing in the 1950s. Stop. Just stop. Enough! Pong was the first game to receive critical acclaim, and it started in wooden cabinets jammed into sticky floored arcades, and it kicked off a cultural revolution that has been unstoppable since. Early games like Pong, Pac-Man, and Space Invaders had early gamers shoving coins into their coin slots faster than their boomer dads could swing a belt. It was here, in the arcades, where gamers would congregate together because of their shared passion for this new hobby. Televisions weren't as prevalent in the home at the time, so it would be a few years until home consoles really took hold. And even when the likes of the Atari 2600 did hit store shelves, it came bundled with 2 joystick controllers. So we can see right from the bat, gaming as a hobby was inherently social. You would either play in a social environment where you and your friends would gather around an arcade cabinet competing for the high score, or you would be at home battling your friends or siblings in a primitive form of split screen but not split screen couch multiplayer. This style of gaming would continue unchanged for much of the 1980s and 1990s. Consoles like the Sega Genesis, NES, and SNES would all provide an arcade-like experience at home, with the idea of multiple people playing together being the norm. Think of games like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe as an example, which promote multiple players beating up bad guys on the same screen together. In the arcades, it wasn't much different, and in fact with the rise of the fighting game came an even more cohesive socialness to gaming. For the fighting game community, the arcade was where it was at. You would queue up to take on the winner of the previous match of Street Fighter, trash talking them in real time or dishing out some whoop ass. An example of this is the famous Moment 37 Evo tournament between Daigo and Justin. You can simply feel the crowd's passion. Okay, great. Gaming is social then, right? No, it's not quite that simple either. Let me explain why. See, it all started to change as home consoles with 3D graphics started to take hold. This process of antisocial trends began slowly with the PS1, but it really started to take hold with the PS2 and Xbox around 2001. It's in this period that video games started to become more like movies that you can play rather than basic games where you chase high scores. This was made possible by PlayStation's focus on 3D graphics, and Metal Gear Solid's release in 1998 opened the floodgates for narrative games that had a serious focus on storytelling and immersion. In the next few years, we saw the rise of huge franchises like Halo, Silent Hill, Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty before Nicki Minaj twerked on your corpse.
Playtime is over when Nicki drops in, looking a monster, automobile gangster. Bang, 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 bang.
Kingdom Hearts, Splinter Cell, and tons more that took advantage of the leaps in powerful hardware to make single-player focused games that had cutscenes, stories, and voice acting. These were all innovative features at the time that pushed the boundaries of video games, but they also resulted in more isolation. Since games like Silent Hill were best experienced on your own in a dimly lit room, it made us forget the social aspect of having to be together in person to enjoy games. But here is where we hit a big roadblock. What is the actual definition of antisocial? Well, it splits in two ways. The dictionary says that one meaning can be to avoid social situations in the company of others, but it can also mean to act contrary to the laws and customs of society and in a way that causes annoyance, offence or disapproval in others. So far we've talked about the first and more literal version of being antisocial, but as we're about to see, gaming took a far darker and unexpected turn in the next generation. While the PS2 and Xbox had online services, they were still pretty primitive. But when the Xbox 360 hit the scene, it changed the way we play online together for good. I still remember the Christmas of 2005, unwrapping an Xbox 360 and going online to play Perfect Dark Zero with the included headset on Christmas Day. Everyone in the lobbies were amazed at the new voice chat features and ease at which Microsoft had implemented Xbox Live into its games. But it didn't take long for the experience to sour. Racist, bigoted and just downright offensive gamer tags started appearing, and Call of Duty pre-match lobbies were just full of people slinging all kinds of insults at each other. This marked a decade-long period of transition, where gamers were brought back together socially but in a weird isolated way. This idea is perfectly captured in Death Stranding, where everyone is connected but from their own isolated rooms and houses. This connected anonymity is what spurred on this second way of being antisocial. We became reconnected in a way where there were no repercussions for our actions. There was no immediate accountability for acting like a madman like there would be in public. And this is where the rise of internet trolls and so on have their origins. Moving on to the PS4 and PS5 period, which started roughly in 2014 and continues until now, we've seen a huge whiplash in how we approach socialness in gaming. In response to the Wild West that was Xbox Live landscape, it's common for most people in a multiplayer game to not even use voice comms now. In fact, most people just go straight into the settings and turn voice chat off. Even Call of Duty is a desolate wasteland for the most part when you join a pre-match lobby. Voice chatting in gaming is restricted mostly to friends and is conducted via Discord for maximum protection. People are simply done with having 12-year-old screes blasting through their living room sound system. There are, of course, always exceptions to this trend. PC gamers who play simulators or realistic games like Squad, which require coordination, will use voice chat features, and I'm not saying that this is a blanket statement. But there's no denying that in the past 2 generations, people have become more secluded again, less willing to meet new strangers who might become lifelong gaming pals. I wondered, however, if it was just me that felt this way or noticed it, so I did some research online and found a buttload of forum threads echoing what I've said here. People have noticed that the online gaming landscape has become barren and soulless. One Redditor summed it up perfectly when they said that around 2016 they stopped playing games online because it felt like babysitting someone else's neglected kid. Other Redditors in the same thread said that they feel like it reflects the way society is moving away from real life socialness and moving everything into strangely compartmentalized online spaces dictated by algorithms. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that. First, gaming was social. Then it became more isolated with the rise of technology and single-player narrative games. The Xbox 360 era saw the rise of one form of anti-social gaming, where abuse and insults became dominant, and in reaction, ever since roughly 2014, we've seen gamers swap one anti-social tendency with another. Because now we're antisocial by avoidant behaviour. We've separated into small Discord cliques that serve as echo chambers to cement our own opinions, but even then there's always a few splinter groups in a fandom that start getting rowdy over one person's preference for a certain character or item over another, and it all starts again. The thing is though, gaming can also be the most social thing on the planet. It sounds like a contradiction, but the same technology that separates us connects us. Again, back to the Death Stranding analogy. Damn you, Kojima! Small communities are able to connect in ways they never would have before. If you're a fan of any kind of niche, say games like Life is Strange or Night in the Woods, or genres like adventure games or retro gaming, then there's never been an easier way to connect with like-minded individuals around the globe. Individuals can come together and support each other, play together, or just hang out and feel connected via a shared hashtag. From players in these communities I've talked to over the years, it's the ability to share their passion that has, in some cases, kept them sane, happy, or even alive, because they feel like someone out there understands them. When I set out to make this video, I thought I'd come away with a concrete answer, some kind of idea I could point to and say, this is what's happening and this is how we fix it. But honestly, I don't know where we go from here. We can't go back into the arcades, and we can't turn our voice chat back on either. And the further we splinter into small isolated groups, the crazier it all gets. But at the same time, the better it gets. It feels like, for better or worse, it's easier now than ever to bypass meeting strangers who don't think like you and instead just find people you like. Or just ignore people entirely. While that's great in a lot of ways, it has also led to us dismissing everyone but the most like-minded people who understand us. Like we're huddling in little underground bunkers together. Okay, Kojima, you gotta stop this. Whether that's antisocial or not, I'll leave up to you to decide in the comments, because I think the answer for this one has to come from the community.